This is Project 0 for CS50 web programming with Python and JavaScript from Harvard University through EDX. It covers intros to Git, HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, and Sass. Before looking at the web page code, a little background: I'm a Linux user and use Kazam to record this video. I also used VS Code for editing and Git for version control. This is VS Code here. You can see on the bottom you can add a terminal, and so while I can do my editing of files on the top, I can handle Git, adding, committing, pushing, getting the status, all on the bottom in one environment. My project defines and implements the Project 0 requirements as a web page about Project 0. Let's look at the web pages and the navigation. This is the home screen. It talks about the technologies involved. There's a top part with description and purpose, a middle part with Git, 3 columns, Git, HTML, and CSS, and a bottom part with 2 columns on Bootstrap and Sass. The second page is requirements. This is an unordered list of the requirements of the project. Colors is a page on common colors with color name, the hex code, the RGB code, and then you can view the color in the last column. And lastly, image, which is self-explanatory. So now we can go look at the code. All the pages use the same head section, so we'll go through that first. Here's the title that shows up in the tab. The character set is the universal character set. Viewport. The viewport is the user's visible area of the web page. The viewport varies with a device and will be smaller on a mobile than on a computer screen. The meta viewport element gives the browser instructions on how to control the page's dimensions and scaling. The width equals device width sets the width of the page to follow the screen width of the device, and the initial scale is the initial zoom when the page is first loaded by the browser. Next we have a link to Bootstrap 4, and then lastly there's a link to a local style sheet. We're in index.html, the body of which has 2 parts, a menu and content. All of the pages have the same menu, so we'll go through that once. These are the Bootstrap 4 classes. There's the navbar, expand.lg, navbar light, navbar text, and then nav and navbar nav. This is just an unordered list that contains the names and links of the various menu items. As you can see here, home, requirements, colors, and image. The next part is content. Class equals containers. Containers is the most basic layout element in Bootstrap and is required when using the default grid system. The home page uses the Bootstrap's grid system, and which has a series of containers, rows, and columns to lay out and align the content. It's built with Flexbox and is fully responsive. There's actually 4 rows. The first row is just the heading. The second row has 2 div classes that correspond to the description and the purpose. You notice that the class equals col- LG-6, which means on a large screen use up 6 of the 12 columns. On a small screen, use all 12 of the 12 columns. The next section, row 3, of course there are now 3 of these divisions. Each of these divisions uses 4 columns on a large screen and 6 columns on a small screen. And the last section is basically the same layout as the second one above. That's pretty much index.html. The next one is list, which is requirements. We've already talked about the head section. We've talked about the navigation section. So in terms of content, it's the same thing. We have the Bootstrap container class. We have a class equals row for the requirements, and a class equals row for an unordered list. Table, again, we did the head section, we did the navigation section. So in the content section, again, a Bootstrap for container class. Oops, let me go over there. We have the color table heading and a table with common colors. And again, it's the name of the color, the hex code of the color, the RGB code of the color, and then viewing the color. And lastly, we have the image page, and skipping the head section and the menu. It also has the container class from Bootstrap 4 with 2 div class rows, where the second one has a heading, USS Kittiwake, a paragraph, and then the image. That takes us to the style sheet. This style sheet was generated by style.scss, so I'm not going to go through it. I'll just jump over to style.scss. Style.scss is from Sass. Sass lets you use features that don't exist in CSS yet, like variables, nesting, mix-ins, inheritance, and other things. Sass takes the preprocessed Sass file, which ends in .scss, and compiles it into a normal CSS file that you can use on your website. So one of the features of Sass is variables. So I've defined some variables. You can see that they're sprinkled around throughout the page. Another feature of Sass is nesting. In HTML and other programming languages, you can create a hierarchy. CSS doesn't allow that, but with Sass you can do that. So for navbar light Bootstrap class, I've included the line selector within that class, and we'll see that in the style sheet. Then when you compile it, Sass will separate the navbar light and the navbar light li. Also notice that the color variables are gone, and they're just it just substitutes the colors within the code. Lastly, there's inheritance. Using an add-extend lets you share a set of CSS properties from one selector to another, which I've done here for the headings. I took some common headings properties, put them into a property called heading shared, and then using the add-extend, I included those 3 properties in all of the headings. And looking at style, you can see here the common heading properties are included. You compile the style.scss into style.css with a style.scss to style.css. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for letting me bore you for a few minutes. Have a good day.